2, 1 and then you say install, right? There is no difference between a Mozilla site and a third-party site. So if I'm a smart guy and I'm a good social engineer, I could basically give you click this, and most of the people when they give graphical thing, that step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, people believe that it's a right system and they will accept and they will install. But that being that, the other ways of installing an extension is you could install extensions by putting a file in a specific file location, like in the profile directory of Firefox, there is a folder called extensions, or program files Mozilla extensions, there is a folder called extensions. You put a file there with the ID name of the extension that you want to load, and inside that file you need to store the path of where the extension is going to be loaded. Once you put that, what happens is it automatically installs. That brings me to the alternate method. I just told you what happens. You put a file, you put the path, and it automatically installs it. What next? The problem when you do something like this is, it does not ask you for any warning. It does not ask you whether you want to install it or not. It automatically installs it and tells you that a new extension has been installed. The minute browser starts and the extension has been installed, you can basically control the Firefox environment itself. So what we had tested, we could try a few things is, you could even tamper that box that comes. Even that is a Joule file. You can say this file will not come back. You could do to that extent. So you just put this file. Now, so what are the scenarios? You could bring a USB stick with a text file, and one of these I will be showing you when we were doing these testings. We found a peculiar problem. Like if you put your extensions in a network, in a network file like 10.0.0.1 and give it a path, Firefox will not install it. Firefox will say you cannot connect to a network drive. But what we did was we mapped it and we said Z drive. The minute we put Z drive, Firefox went to a remote location, picked up the file and installed it. Imagine this. A network administrator of the bank decides to become malicious. He just has to write one logon script to basically put a file in the profile directory with the extension, the ID that the extension is going to be, with the location to wherever the space he controls. Immediately the extension will get installed and there is no stopping to it. You could create a USB autorun. I'm sure most of you know that the Stuxnet virus was spread, most of it because of the USB viruses. So USB viruses do exist. People do have problems with it. You put an autorun file and you put it, the file will get installed and you will have an extension. You could write an extension to basically sniff off everything that he's doing. You can write an extension to sniff his passwords. Maybe we could show you a password attack. These are the ways that you could basically install them. Yes?
The list of extensions, can you hide an extension?
List, where do you mean the extension when you say tools, add-ons? Yes, till 3.5. After 3.6, they have changed it. Mozilla has put, you used to have, there is a file called install.rdf. There used to be an XML tag called em_hidden equal to true or false. If you make it true, you will not see it there. But as of 3.6, so if you have upgraded your this one, you will see it. There is no way you can hide it from it. And but yes, what we do as a malicious guy, what I do is I still put em_hidden. There are people still using 3. I know in my place where I work, people are using 2.53. So in their cases, oh sure, their extension will not be seen at all. Does that answer this? Right now we've completed 2 major components. One, briefly understood what is the Firefox model is. And second, we've understood how to install, how are the alternative methods that you could install and extensions. You could be creative. You could mix match a few things and create a way how you could install your Firefox, your extensions. Next, I want to concentrate a little bit on what happens if a malicious extension comes in. The security model, like I said, is totally flat. What do I mean by that is, once the component gets access into the system there, it has virtually any power to do anything. It can call any XPCOM component, it can call any Joule files, and the worst part, it could even go attack other extensions also. That's the reason why I said it's a flat one. So basically it could go do anything it wants. The second one is self-explanatory. Third one is you can. Why did I write that you can have a full system compromise? Most of the enterprises give very restrictive privileges to the people. I'm sure of that. But that means that you can't install softwares and stuff like that. But Firefox, a very low privileged user can also install. So you don't need to be an administrator to install Firefox. That's a problem. And that's the reason where I work. One of the mandates that we have put that you can't use Firefox. So as an official in the place where I work, I can't use Firefox. So what happens is once you install Firefox, he could basically go and install any malicious file and he can have a control on it. That is one step. When we complete the XCS, you will know how a third-party guy can, if you put a malicious extension, how a third-party guy can take control of your machine. The fourth point is extensions don't respect other extensions boundaries. You can basically go take control of any other extension also. That's a little bit of statistics to show that today we are close to 50%. Just to give you a small idea of Firefox is growing, and with the 4 it should be growing more. And the most one that I am interested is the 2 billion extensions. Today, as of today, there are 2 billion extensions available on the addons.mozilla.com. But this is just addons.mozilla. There can be hundreds of sites which do not even publish this. Like one of the things that we were thinking, and I was just talking to Rohit about it, is today, even if you install a software, you could get an extension on it. See, all that an extension vendor has to do is, he has to put the file in that location, which is the program files Mozilla extensions folder, a file and a location. And the extensions will get installed. It's as simple as that. So you have a software that is doing it, the software can install the extension for you. Like most of the people know about the BHOs which IE installs, or the software which install the BHOs. This slide, I wanted to bring in that extensions are available at every nook and corner of our life today. You have an extension for doing anything. There was an extension with small text box where you can say 2 plus 2, it will automatically give you the result. So people don't want even to do basic mathematics. For that also there is an extension for that. I think it's called JS Math or something. The last one I put in there, we as security experts, we use a lot of extensions. I personally use a lot of extensions. Tamper Data, I believe, is a very famous one. Fireship, the recent one being the most famous one. Hackbar, which you could use for doing some of the SQL injection. So if you look at it, every spectrum of your life is covered and every spectrum has an extension available. This is the AMO process. Basically, when you send an extension, it's automatically put into a sandbox. Basically means it will not get automatically on your website, on their website. There is a review that happens. Once the review is completed, they are happy. You will have to follow that whole. I'm sure this presentation is available. You can see it. You follow the process. It is available for public download. But the problem is, 2 problems that I have noticed is the extensions are not signed. It has the support. It has the support for signing. But till date, I have not seen an extension which has come with a signed capability. Most important ones like Tamper Data, Firebug, all of them are not signed. So probably a signing would be a good option that happens. Experimental extensions, even those are available on the website, on the mozilla.com. And one more thing that is important is, on the Mozilla site, there are some extensions that you could download today which do not go through the code review process. The only difference is, I'll just go to the old slide, I think I didn't show it to you. You see the first one is green with recommended. The one below it is an yellow color. I don't know if you can see it clearly. If you go look at, if you look for an extension called XPCOM Viewer, you will get this page. What this basically means is, an extension has been submitted, but it has not gone through the QA process. Mozilla is not responsible for the safety of it. But if you download it, it's your responsibility. This sums it up. Why most important with extensions is social engineering does play a very important role with extensions. When Mozilla says it's recommended, people believe that it is recommended. Like I asked you, how many of you actually used Tapper Data? A lot of you. But how many people have actually opened up Tapper Data and seen it, what it does inside? None of you. The problem is that if someone recommends it, we trust it. And this trust can be effectively taken control of. Couple of examples. I'm not going to go into all of them. I'm not going to say each one of these examples. But one thought that came to my mind when I was doing this presentation is, what if I make an extension? First time, there is no problem. But there is something called an update URL that is there in the install.rdf, which basically says if you want your extensions to be auto-updated, it will auto-update for you. First time, I submit it to Mozilla, it gets approved, it's on the site. Probably, what if I make some functions which are malware in third or fourth update? How can you detect that? That's a thought that I had, and probably that's something that we could think on. What we can do. We've been thinking on something to solve that problem. I'll come back when I'm discussing the problem solving points. That's my favorite section. We'll be looking at attacking some malicious extensions, and then we'll be looking at some CS. We've been talking extensions, but we've not discussed really. Sorry. We've been discussing some of these extensions, but we've not really discussed what is an anatomy of an extension. What happens in an extension? An extension is nothing but an archive file. The XPA file that you have is nothing but a zip file with a file format name of XPI. If you want to open it, just convert it or just open it with WinRAR or any software, you can open it and you can see what is stored inside. There is a file structure that has to be followed. Once you open it, there are two important files that needs to be there. One is the install.rdf and the other one is the chrome.manifest. Install.rdf tells what are all the important things that the Mozilla has to do to install this extension. Chrome.manifest tells, like I said, the overlay files. It tells where do you need to put this. Then there should be a folder called Chrome, which basically stores the card directory. You could have your Zool files here, your images files here, your JavaScript files here. Whatever you need for the code execution that you need to put it in there. That's it. That's as simple as that. So if you're really doing some code review of an extension, you need to look what is there inside. You need to open it up, these files. Open it with a WinRAR or some software like that. You will see this file structure. Open it into a file and then you can do your code review. It's like as simple as reading a JavaScript file. Okay, let's get to one of the demos. I'll start with one demo. No, this is the content of the XPI file itself.
So where does the path slash come from?
See, like I said, the XPI file is an archive. It's a zipped file. So it's like all these files together, you zip them up and you change the name to XPI, it will become an extension.
So it can be extracted anywhere?
Yes, you can extract it and then you have the file structure. This is not in the program files. The program files is pointing to only the install.rdf. It is looking for the install.rdf, that's it. So let me get into one of the demos. Okay, for the ease of use, I have basically created a button there. If you are a malicious guy, you don't want buttons. Okay, what I have done is, how many people store their passwords on web pages? I just saw one hand. That's at least good. Good. I'm happy that you guys are not saving it, but that's a very bad security practice. Sorry?
I'm saying you're the only one who knows it. Don't say they're not.
Probably Nino does not know that page says no password.
Yeah, that's the worst thing. You don't know it.
Even worse. So when you save passwords, it's stored and very easily retrievable. See, these are some of the passwords. Fact is, these are not my real passwords, so please don't try. But these are stored specifically to show you that passwords can be easily taken off. This is one demo. I'll just go into this and show you how it is being stored.